is. So a great feeling of regret, but at the same time, that was tempered somewhat by a feeling of new freedom.
Moving west, the deep water ports of Newport and Cardiff were built to trade far beyond the confines of the Severn Sea. Exports of coal helped finance the building of resorts like Penarth for miners on day trips close to home. But the appeal of the South Wales coast stretches far beyond these shores. At St Donat's, it's not hard to see the attraction: a grand coastline and a grand castle. It boasts 800 years of history, but by the start of the 20th century, countless careless owners had left St Donat's in need of a little love. In 1925, it was about to attract a wealthy overseas admirer. Hermione Coburn's exploring how one of the world's richest men transformed this castle into a pleasure palace.
This is an edition of Country Life from the early 1900s, and alongside articles of bird watching and trout fishing, there's an illustrated feature about a Welsh castle down on its luck. But St Donat's would soon capture one reader's heart.
The magazine attracted the attention of one of America's great newspaper magnates, William Randolph Hearst. He was one of the most powerful men in the USA, calling the shots both in Washington and Hollywood. His media empire could make and break politicians and movie stars alike. Hearst, famously the inspiration for the film Citizen Kane, had a passion for excess and the money to indulge it. He'd already built one extravagant castle on the Californian coast at San Simeon, complete with its own zoo. But why, in 1925, was he hatching a new scheme thousands of miles away on the Welsh coast?
Without ever coming to Wales, he cabled his staff in London, buy St Donat's Castle. And so he acquired this modest pile in need of a little work.
It was another 3 years before he set foot here, but when he did, he turned the place upside down. Before Hearst, St Donat's boasted just 3 bathrooms. He fitted another 32. Like all good fixer-uppers, he installed central heating, as well as connecting the castle to the water mains. And he added not 1, but 3 tennis courts and a heated pool. With the essentials fixed, Hearst really started to show off and decided the Welsh history of the house wasn't quite enough. To discover the full extent of Hearst's fantasies, I'm meeting Thea Osborne, who studied the man and his dream castle.
Look at this room.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
It is fantastic. And look at the ceiling. It's absolutely beautiful. What's the history of this part of the castle?
Hearst actually built this room himself. Originally, this was the outer wall, and he added on these 3 extra walls. And he imported the ceiling from the Bradenstoke Priory in Wiltshire. It's a 14th century ceiling, and he brought it in here and built the room around it. Yeah.
It's quite unbelievable. I mean, you would never guess to look at it. I mean, It looks so well integrated, doesn't it?
The ceiling and the windows both come from Bradenstoke Priory.
But what kind of reaction did he get? This is not something he would get away with today.
Well, it did cause some controversy at the time. Various members of Parliament called it vandalism of historic buildings. But he had enough money, and he was quite determined about what he wanted to do and create the right entertaining space for himself. So.
Entertaining space? So what, was this literally his party room?
Literally, this was his party room, yeah. He'd sort of have dances and dinners here for all his various famous guests.
What kind of people would have come?
Well, he had members of the Hollywood elite, including sort of Charlie Chaplin and the Warner Brothers, and then people from the UK like Winston Churchill, David Lloyd George, the Mountbattens came and stayed.
And what about the fireplaces? There's a beautiful one at that end of the room and a very ornate one there. These presumably aren't original either.
No, he had quite a thing for fireplaces. He brought in 18 in total and put them all over the castle. These ones are both from France, so plucked them from various areas within France and the UK and would even cut them down to size so that they fitted into the room, just in the way that he wanted.
Quite extraordinary.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So what else did Hearst get away with? Gothic screens? Ancient coats of arms? and the gilded ceiling from St Botolph's, a celebrated parish church in Boston, Lincolnshire, all found their way here to satisfy Hearst's insatiable appetite for history. In truth, Hearst wasn't just a lover of history. He was a lover, a man with a mistress. So a little Welsh hideaway a few thousand miles from home suddenly starts to make sense. Her name was Marion Davies, a Hollywood actress. Marion and Hearst loved to entertain the rich and famous, and she was the reason for this private little scheme, well away from prying eyes. But for all the money he lavished on this castle, Hearst spent just a few months here. He lost control of his empire in the Great Depression, and with it most of his wealth. Hearst and Davies, the American lovers, may have abandoned this Welsh castle, but the world has moved in. St Donat's is now home to Atlantic College, a private boarding school. 350 sixth formers from 75 countries live and study here. The students are encouraged to make the most of their coastal home. They even run their own inshore lifeboat with the RNLI. After a hard day on the water, they're probably grateful for the bathrooms and central heating put in by William Randolph Hearst.
Atlantic College attracts students from all over the world. But just a little further down the coast, near the vast Merthyr Mawr dune system, one group of visitors came a lot less willingly and were a little too eager to leave. The wide open spaces here are a good place to roam free, or to hide. Around 60 years ago, a deadly serious game of hide and seek was about to begin. It's the morning of Sunday, March the 11th, 1945. Listen carefully, and you might hear the sound of bells carried on the wind across this